Raya Gopinjanavallabha Girivaradari Raya Gopinjanavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajanandana Yashodanandana Rajajanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Kunjabi Hari Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Vijanavallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodananda Ajajanandana Yashodananda Ajajanandana Ajajanandana Yashodanandana Ajajanandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Ayaradhama Kunjabihari Kunjabihari Ayaradhama Kunjabihari Ram Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Acharya, Astota Satishi Srimad His Divine Grace, Isi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ram Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Acharya, Astota Satishi Srimad His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnu Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter entitled Our Master Has Not Finished His Work. The next morning, with the fanfare of Prabhupada's arrival past, it became apparent just how dependent devotees were on their spiritual leader. Attendance was down to the dozen or so regulars, and Prabhupada silently entered the storefront and began to lead the chanting. But when the moment came for the devotees to sing in response and Prabhupada heard their first chorus, he looked out to them, startled and compassionate. Now he could hear. They were weak, more like croaking than singing. They had deteriorated in his absence. The kirtans had changed while he had been away. And now he was hearing what the devotees were like, helpless souls croaking without joy or verve. Srila Prabhupada lectured from Chaitanya Charitamrita. When flying from San Francisco, I noticed that the plane was flying above an ocean of clouds. When I came from India by boat, I saw an ocean of water. On the plane, I saw an ocean of clouds extending as far as you can see. Above the clouds is the sun, but when we come down through the clouds and land, everything in New York is dim and clouded. but the sun is still shining. Those clouds cannot cover the whole world. They cannot even cover the whole United States, which is no more than a speck in the universe. On an airplane, we can see skyscrapers as very tiny. Similarly, from God's position, all this material nonsense is insignificant. As a living entity, I am very insignificant, and my tendency is to come down. But the sun doesn't have the come down tendency. It is always above the clouds of mine. A new boy raised his hand. Why is it that one person, one soul, comes to Krishna and another doesn't? Prabhupada replied with another question. Why is one soul in the Bowery and another has come to the Krishna temple? He paused, but no one could reply. Because one wants to be here and the other doesn't, he explained. It is a question of free will. If we use it properly, we can go to Krishna. Otherwise, we will stay down in the material world. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sarvashakti Piyusa, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Prada. O nectar of the ocean of all scriptures, singular food of all the Vedas, rich mine of precious gems of all conclusive truths, you're the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Pranam, Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu, Kali Dvanta Didaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, may the sun risen in the darkness of Kali, may the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Vakshaksharayate, Sarvada Sarvasivyaya, Shri Krishna Namostune. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You're Shri Krishna himself. Madheka Maddo Matsangin, Madguru Madmahadana, Madnishtaraka Madbhagya, Madanandana Mustite. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Sadhu sadhu tadayin matino chitta. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalted of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice for pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the fourth canto, chapter entitled Activities of the Prachetas, texts 39 to 40. Yanaswaditam Gurava Prasadita Viprascha Vriddascha Sadhanuvrittaya Aryanata Suhrido Bratarascha Sarvani Bhutanya Nasuyayaiva Yanasutaptam Tapaetadisha Nirandasam Kalam Adabramapsu Sarvam Tadetad Purushasya Bhumno Purnimahete Paritoshanaya Yannasvaditam Gurava Prasadita Viprascha Vriddascha Sadhanuvrittiya Aryanata Suhrido Bhartarascha Sarvani Bhutanya Nasuyayaiva Yannasutaptam Tappa Etadisha Nirandasam Kalam Adabram Apsu Sarvam Tadetad Purushasya Bhumno Purnimahete Paritoshanaya Yannasvadatitam Gurava Prasadita Viprascha Vriddascha Sadhanuvrittaya Aryanata Suhrido Prartarascha Sarvani Bhutanya Nasuyayaiva Yannasutaptam Tapa Etadisha Nirandasam Kalam Adabramapsu Sarvam Tadetad Purushasya Bhumno Purnimahete Paritoshanaya. Word for word. Yet what? Na by us, Svaditam studied, Gurava superior persons, spiritual masters, Prasadita satisfied, Vipra the Brahmanas, Cha and Vriddha those who are elderly, Cha and Sat Anuvritya by our gentle behavior, Arya those who are advanced in spiritual knowledge, Nata who are offered obeisances, Suhrida by friends, Bhartara brothers, Cha and Sarvani all, Bhutani living entities, Anusuyaya without envy, Eva, certainly. Yet what? Na of us. Sutaptam, severe. Tapa, penance. Etat, this. Isha, O Lord. Nirandasam, without taking any food. Kalam, time. Adabram, for a long duration. Apsu, within the water. Sarvam, all. Tat, that. Etat, this. Purushasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhumna, the most exalted. Mahe, we want this benediction. Te, of you. Paritoshanaya, for the satisfaction. Translation. Dear Lord, we have studied the Vedas, accepted a spiritual master, and offered respect to Brahmins, advanced devotees, and aged personalities who are spiritually very advanced. We have offered our respects to them, and we have not been envious of any brother, friend, or anyone else. We have also undergone severe austerities within the water and have not taken food for a long time. All these spiritual assets of ours are simply offered for your satisfaction. We pray for this benediction only and nothing more. Purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Samsiddhir Harito Shanam, the real perfection of life is pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedischa sarve raham eva vedya. In understanding the Vedas, one has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who has actually understood him surrendered unto him after many, many births. We find all these qualifications in the Prachetas. They underwent severe austerities and penances within the water. They did not take any food for a very long time. They practice these austerities not for material benediction, but for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. One may engage in any business, material or spiritual. But the purpose should be the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This verse presents a perfect picture of Vedic civilization. People training to become devotees should be respectful not only to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but also to those who are elderly in knowledge, who are Aryans and actual devotees of the Lord. An Aryan is one who does not boast, but is an actual devotee of the Lord. Aryan means advanced. Formerly, those who claimed to be Aryans had to be devotees of the Lord. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna chastised Arjuna by saying that he was speaking like a non-Aryan. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Kashmalamidam Krisantam Anarya Justam Aiswargyam Akirti Karam Arjuna. The Supreme Person, Bhagavan, said, My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the progressive values of life. They do not lead to higher planets, but to infamy. Arjuna, the Kshatriya, was refusing to fight despite being directly ordered by the Supreme Lord. He was just chastised by the Lord as belonging to a non-Aryan family. Anyone who is advanced in the devotional service of the Lord certainly knows his duty. It does not matter whether his duty is violent or non-violent. If it is sanctioned and ordered by the Supreme Lord, it must be performed. An Aryan performs his duty. It is not that the Aryans are unnecessarily inimical to living entities. The Aryans never maintain slaughterhouses, and they are never enemies of poor animals. The Prachetas underwent severe austerities for many, many years, even within the water. Accepting austerities and penances is the avowed business of those interested in advanced civilization. The word nirandasam means without food. Eating voraciously and unnecessarily is not the business of an Aryan. Rather, the eating process should be restricted as far as possible. When Aryans eat, they eat only prescribed eatables. Regarding this, the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram pushpam balam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti paharityam ashnami paratatmana. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Thus, there are restrictions for the advanced Aryans. Although the Lord himself can eat anything and everything, he restricts himself to vegetables, fruits, milk, and so on. This verse thus describes the activities of those who claim to be Aryans. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. With your blessings, I will try to speak a little bit on the Bhagavatam for my purification, for the pleasure of the devotees. Srila Prabhupada in this purport focuses on the word Aryan. The word Aryan is familiar to modern thinkers, has its place in modern history. The country of Iran gets its name from the Sanskrit word Aryan. And many people are familiar that the Nazis in Germany, Hitler was famous for using the word Aryan. He actually stole many things from Vedic culture. Questionable as his character is, somehow or other he had valued the Vedic culture. So he took the swastika, flipped it the other way around. He was known to be a vegetarian, although he didn't care for human life. He used the word Aryan to signify a master race, the pure race. And his definition was those who were white-skinned, blonde, and blue-eyed. So anybody who was different, he put them in gas chambers. And so Prabhupada here says that an Aryan does not open slaughterhouses. So he had slaughterhouses for humans. Now they have slaughterhouses for animals. The principle is the same, violence to living entities, which disqualifies one from being an Aryan. Aryan comes from the root of to advance. That's what the Sanskrit word means, Arya. And so Srila Prabhupada would use it in that term, in that way. An Aryan means one who's uncivilized. And so an Aryan is not a person who's designated by race, just like as a Brahmana is not a person who's, or a Goswami is not known by his birth. Similarly, an Aryan is one who's known by their qualities. And the quality, first of all, is that one has to follow Vedic culture, a progressive life using the human form to develop higher qualities. Krishna has 64 qualities, and they are pure. The living entity can get those qualities to a similar degree. And many of those qualities are manifested in the material world in the mode of goodness, things like cleanliness, purity, self-control, simplicity, humility, gratitude. All these are one of Krishna's qualities. Now, in the material world, they are manifest and they are never complete. They're always just a little bit of a fraction. But in Krishna, they are found in completeness. And in Krishna, they're also found, they never flicker. They're not sometimes present, sometimes here, sometimes not. But in the living entity in the material world, because the modes of nature are competing, then these qualities are never manifested purely. So in the spiritual world, the living entity has all these qualities to as much of a capacity that they can hold. Krishna has them for more, but they are in pure goodness in the material world. Therefore, as one develops these qualities, then they are known to be on a higher level of human existence, human society. So therefore, an Aryan is known to be the most advanced among the humans because they have these qualities. Without them, one cannot be respected as an advanced personality. So therefore, a Brahmana also has to develop the qualities. This was a point of contention amongst Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and the smarta Brahmanas who gave him much trouble because they wanted to hold a monopoly. He began to give Brahminical initiation to the Vaishnavas who are even higher. But they objected. They just wanted to be rubber stamped, as Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita. But a Mahatma cannot be rubber stamped. You cannot take an ordinary man and dress them up nicely and automatically they become very exalted. Rather, the internals have to be developed. Just like if somebody, like I remember when I was younger, everybody wanted to drink alcohol, but as a youth you can't do that. So then people go get fake IDs. You get a fake ID, so then you can get some privilege. But the fake ID doesn't change the reality that you are underage. You may get what you want with that stamp, but it still doesn't change the reality. So similarly, people want to walk around, or at least in India nowadays, Western society, they can give a damn about good qualities. As long as a person has money in their pocket, they feel that's sufficient for respect, for adoration, for progressive life. But in India, those who have a little bit of sentiment for Vedic culture, you can say they're just happy with fake IDs. So Prabhupada, here in this purport, he emphasizes this, who was an Aryan. And the point is that the Prachetas, they performed austerities, they served the Aryans, they accepted a spiritual master, they controlled their eating, and they did all these things for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. That was their purpose. Uh, one can perform all these activities for ulterior motives, material progress, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But the highest principle is Krishna's pleasure. That is what everything is meant for. Everything is Krishna's energy. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Yatkinchat jagatyam jagat. Everything in the material world, animate or inanimate, is owned and controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is his property, and one's property is meant for one's pleasure. Just like in your house, everything there, your furniture, the heat pump, uh, the cars, the food in the fridge, your children, they're all meant for your pleasure. And if somebody comes and usurps it, they have to take permission. Then you can allow them. Okay, yes, you can take. So therefore, the second half of that verse is Tena tektena bunjita magridakasya siddhanam. Everything belongs to Krishna, but the living entity is allowed a certain quota. And if they take any more than that, then problems arise. So the problem actually is that everyone is taking more than their quota, and they're not taking God's permission before they use it. Prabhupada gives the example of salt. Salt is available everywhere. There's oceans of it, but you can only take a certain amount. If you put too much salt in the sabji, you ruin the whole thing. You can't take it. Or if you do try to take it, you get sick, you get disturbed, you can't enjoy. But if you take too little, also, then the food won't be palatable. But if you put the right amount of salt in sabji, then you can enjoy. So similarly, it's like that. Everyone wants to enjoy, but the problem is they are taking too much. The idea is the more I get, the happier I'll become. But everybody is trying to get more and more and more. But as my spiritual master says, the two birds, more and better, they don't live together anymore. So instead of thinking of Krishna's happiness, everyone is thinking about their own happiness. And the result of that is frustration. I was reading, Prabhupada was giving the example of a snake. The skin is very cooling. So somebody may think, oh, this is very nice. Let me enjoy the cooling touch of the snake. So they take it and they garland themselves with it. But what happens is the snake is venomous and it kills you. So material life is like that. Everyone is trying to enjoy something which is actually not meant for their enjoyment. It's meant for Krishna's enjoyment. And any remedy they take to try to enjoy or fix their problems of life without acknowledging the supremacy of the Supreme Lord, Bhaktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Gatva Mam Shantim Rachati. You want to be peaceful, but you don't accept Krishna, you will always be dissatisfied. And so the Bhagavatam gives another example of a person who's suffering from scorching heat. So they think, I'll jump into this river and my problems will be mitigated. So they do that, but the problem is they choose to jump into a river that's drying up or too shallow. So they think I'm going to solve everything. They jump in the water, so much hopes, and then they, boom, flat on their face. And so some time ago, I was trying to do a presentation. Those who don't know much about Krishna. So I thought about this example. And I thought, let me play a video. So you can look up on YouTube, jumping into shallow water. And there's examples you can see of people who do that. But the problem is the videos were so horrific and disturbing, I couldn't use them. People break their bones. It's a very painful sight to see when somebody jumps into a shallow river. So this example the Bhagavatam gives is very illustrative of what everyone is doing today. They're trying to be happy, but their consequence, the result is that they end up in a more miserable situation. They're looking for happiness in the wrong place. The Bhagavatam also gives the example of you want milk, so then you find a goat, and the goat, they have these like fleshy nipples on their neck. So you think, oh, this looks pretty good. Let me get some milk from here. So then you try to milk the neck of a goat, but as everyone knows, you can't get milk from there. So Prabhupada also gives the example of a man who wanted to get sugar cane. He tasted some sugar cane. Somebody gave it to him. He said, oh, this is pretty good. Where do you get this from? So his friend told him, oh, it's a sugar cane stalk. He said, oh, how can I go find it? He said, it's just over there. I said, how does it look like? He said, it looks kind of like a bamboo rod. So he went there, and it's true, sugar cane looks like bamboo. It's like quite similar. So the problem is he went to get the bamboo instead of the sugar cane, and no matter how much he tried, he couldn't get sugar cane out of the bamboo rods. So material nature looks like it satisfies. It's very deceiving. It's illusory. It looks like it can give you something. The nipples look like it can give you milk. The bamboo looks like it can give you sugar cane. The water and the river looks like you can jump in and get some refreshment out of it. But all of them lead to destruction. Destruction of the body, sinful activity, one's life duration is reduced, so much disease is there, so much illness, just by trying to enjoy the senses unrestrictedly. Destruction of the mind, one becomes depressed, suicidal, social anxiety, all kinds of mental trouble. And ultimately, pashugnat, one is killer of their own soul. So the soul is also destroyed by this attempt to enjoy the material world. So the solution is that one has to understand, I am not the enjoyer. Very difficult. I'm not the enjoyer? What do you mean? Every day I'm enjoying. We are enjoyers, but we are indirect enjoyers. As Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita, one can understand the nature of the Supreme by thorough study of oneself. The difference being the relation between the part and the whole. So if one wants to understand if the rice is cooked in a pot, you open the lid and you take one grain, you test it. Is it cooked? If it is, you understand the entire thing is cooked. If you want to understand the nature of the bloodstream in the body, you just take a little bit of blood from the body. You don't have to test the entire body. You just take a little bit, you test that, then you can understand if there's disease in the blood. And if you want to test the quality of the ocean, you take one drop, you test it, you understand the whole quality of the ocean. So similarly, if we can understand who we are, then we can understand how Krishna is. Krishna is enjoying. We also have a propensity to enjoy, but we're very tiny. He has it in full. So we are indirect enjoyers. We enjoy by giving Krishna pleasure. And the Bhagavatam gives examples for that. Yatataror mula nisechanena tripshanti yat skanda vajo bhashaka pranopahara chachindriyanam. Just by watering The root, all the leaves become nourished just by giving food to the stomach. All the limbs of the body also become satisfied. So we have to give Krishna food. We have to water uh, the root. But it's difficult. Everyone wants to enjoy directly. Prabhupada was giving this example once. If you want to eat, where do you put the food? Do you put it here? Do you put it here? Then he said, do you put it here? So we have to put the food in the mouth. Uh, Once one does that, then by practical experience, they see, yeah, I wanted to put the food here. I wanted to put it here. I wanted to put it everywhere. But I put it where it's supposed to go, and naturally all my other limbs, everything in my life has become successful. So the devotee particularly, it takes a pure devotee to be able to think of Krishna's pleasure. In the lower stages of devotion, devotional service, Lord Kapila says, is performed in different modes. So the mode of ignorance, one performs it for out of envy, out of pride, out of anger. The mode of passion, devotional service, is performed for some fame, some respect, some control. The mode of goodness, which I would assume most devotees are trying to practice Krishna consciousness in, is characterized by a desire for freedom from anxiety, for purification, for uh, elevating one's own consciousness. But the mode of pure goodness, sattva gun, then only is one able to perform devotional service purely for Krishna's pleasure. So we have to wonder, at least I have to wonder, how many times am I doing devotional service for Krishna's pleasure? Am I doing it in passion, trying to get something out of it for myself? Am I trying to hinder another devotee's devotional service, which is in the mode of ignorance, characterized by violence? So for the most part, yes, we are doing things for our purification. And to do things for Krishna's pleasure, that is a higher level. And many of the acharyas describe that if one does like that, even artificially or in practice, trying to think, I'll try to do this for Krishna's pleasure, like chanting our rounds. Often it's very difficult to try to chant your rounds thinking Krishna will enjoy my chanting japa. It's easier to think by chanting this holy name, Chaito Darpana Marjana, my heart, my consciousness will become purified. And we also pray like that in the humble mood of submissive, calling out to Krishna, please engage me in your service, please purify my heart. That is often our intention. So to think of Krishna's pleasure is difficult because we often think Krishna is Atma Rama. He's already happy. He doesn't need me to make him happy. Actually, I'm the one, like Krishna says, think of my pleasure, but we tell Krishna, actually, I'm the one who's suffering. You're doing pretty good, you know. You're like all sorted. It's kind of like on book distribution. You meet people and you ask them, please, can you give a donation? And they reply, somebody should give me a donation. I need the money. So we do like that with Krishna. Krishna, you know, I'm the one who's suffering here. You should think of my pleasure. What are you doing for me? Mm. So therefore, religion is often characterized by prosperity religion. Even Arjuna, he told Krishna, Govinda, you are the master of the senses. You give pleasure to everyone's senses, to the cows. So Krishna, you should consider my senses here. You know, I'm having a bit of a dilemma, and think of me a little bit. You know, Krishna says, think of me. Arjuna says, you should think of me. You reverse the whole thing on him. But Prabhupada there, you may remember in the purports, he says that actually Govinda is not meant for our pleasure. If we give Govinda pleasure, then naturally we become satisfied. So that takes a little bit of rewiring. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of experience and realization that yes, if I just think of Krishna's pleasure, neglect all my needs, I will somehow or other miraculously be happy and satisfied. So one of the first times I met my spiritual master early on, I had a darshan with him. Might have been the second time I ever met him. And I asked him many questions, things that I'm going through. The darshan was finishing. He got up, he was walking off. And I was thinking, there's something more I need to get. Something still uh, disturbing my consciousness. So I got it. So before he left, I said, I feel like I'm always looking to be happy. I realized this is my anxiety. So he just turned around, looked at me. I was still sitting on the floor, and he said, don't look for happiness, look for service, and happiness will be forced upon you. So the devotee, we do like that. We just think of how much service I can do, how much I can contribute to the society of devotees, to Mahaprabhu's mission, even at the cost of my own pleasure, as the gopis also say, it's the highest level of devotion. If my unhappiness brings you happiness, I call that the best of my happiness. So Krishna actually is always looking to give happiness to the living entities this way, that way, everywhere, every way. But we don't have to worry too much. We just have to give up our own selfish desires for the highest good. And so we have many opportunities to do that. For us here in the ashram, we are now embarking on the Prabhupada Marathon all over the world. Devotees are doing that. And that's a perfect example of giving up one's own comforts for a higher purpose. And then by realization, by experience, one sees that miraculously I am satisfied. Although I'm living in a van, although I'm talking to people 8 to 10 hours a day, I'm eating very simply, taking cold showers, neglecting all of my own necessities, but somehow or other, I'm finding the greatest satisfaction. So we can do that to whatever capacity we have in our life. Just sacrifice our own interests for Krishna's. Often that's done for the benefit of others. That's why Srila Prabhupada's genius is that he gave us service to perform. One time a devotee asked Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was a very empowered acharya. He could have spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Why did he not do that? Reasonable. He was known as the sixth Goswami. He is an associate of Srimati Radharani. He had so many capabilities. So Prabhupada, he paused and he replied, Bhaktivinoda Thakur left us some service to perform. That was his intention. So Prabhupada's genius also is that he gave us some service to perform by which we can think of other people's benefit rather than always think of ourselves. Mahaprabhu, as an exemplary devotee, the highest devotee, he also gave up all material comforts for that purpose. Tyaktva sudushuja shurupshita rajya lakshmim dharmishtya arya vachasa tadadaradanyam mayam rigam daitam apsutam advadavat vande mahapurushate charanaravindam. I offer you my respectful obeisances, O Mahapurusha. You gave up the association of the goddess of fortune and all her opulences, which are very difficult to give up and which are hankered for even by demigods like Brahma and Shiva. In obedience to a Brahmana's curse, you went to the forest, and out of causeless mercy, you ran after the conditioned souls who are always after the pursuit of material enjoyment. And at the same time, you chased after your object of desire, Lord Shamasundara. So Mahaprabhu exemplified all these things, giving up the highest pleasures, quote unquote. He had Lakshmi Priya, Vishnu Priya, he had Mother Sachi, he had the most beautiful hair, he had associates, he had everything. Still, he gave it up. For what? For chasing after the living entities who are after the pursuit of material enjoyment, to help them, and to get the highest pleasure of love of Krishna, to Premanjana Charita Bhakti to be able to tinge the eyes with the salve of love and see Shama Sundar within the heart at all times. So, in conclusion, the Prachetas served great devotees. They performed many things. They were non envious, a quality very rare to come by. They did everything for Krishna's satisfaction. That was the highest benediction they were looking for. So we can try to do that to whatever capacity in our life rather than look for our own satisfaction, do things for Krishna and see the result. The result will be that we will actually get the happiness that we're looking for. So thank you for giving me this opportunity again. And if anybody has anything to ask or add, I'll be very happy to hear from you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hari Hari.
Such a wonderful explanation you have given right from the beginning to to make us understand what is our the purpose, what is the exact duty of devotee. So we can see from the example of the Prachetas, they are so elevated. They have left everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. They did it. They did their tapasya for 10,000 years and having taken nothing from the day one, and how they survived is very difficult, and to understand these things, how a person can live for 1,000 years without any food.
Mm.
So it is when we are devoted to the Lord's service, everything is provided by the Lord Himself. We don't need to want for it, because the nature provides everything insufficiently, so that we are finally satisfied whatever we need to pull on our bodies. So as sorry, but nowadays what we see, we just jump here and there, move here and there for the temporary satisfaction, which we think that that is the only satisfaction of our life, but we don't understand the innermost significance of this word, satisfaction word. The satisfaction is the only word for the satisfaction of the Lord, not for our own. And we have seen 15:7. We are the part and parcel and of the Lord. So when the Lord is satisfied, naturally the living entities become satisfied. This understanding comes only when we really go through these examples of great acharyas, great devotees like Prachetas, to understand the whose satisfaction is priority. Instead of that, we just look for satisfaction in every respect. And as you given the example, jumping into a river with shallow depth, and the goat nipples look like in the neck, look like the real nipples. So all these examples shows us we need to look for the right destination. We have to get the satisfaction, and that is only satisfying the Lord by giving a proper service with proper knowledge. Everything will be satisfied. So that understanding is very important, and we see from the Aryan's qualities, those are the things, they are very much advanced and civilized. That's why Srila this Bhagavatam has given the example of those prachetas as Aryans. They are so pakka in their advancement and their activities. They know what is the real aim of life. By satisfying only the Lord, we become automatically satisfied. So we don't need to do anything else except thinking by satisfying the Lord. That's why we can see in that text 2 point, 1.2 point. Sorry, I lost it. It said only whatever we do is for the satisfaction of the Lord. If we understand that, then only we become happy. We
Mm,
don't have to try separately to become happy. So by
mm,
and we can see from 529, we understand the Lord is a person who needs to be satisfied, and ultimately or indirectly we become satisfied too. So that is the message of this text by the examples of the prachetas to tell us, look for the satisfaction of the Lord, not for yourself. And Srila Prabhupada on and on talking of these things so meaningfully to understand your satisfaction is not the primary thing. The primary thing is the satisfaction of Lord. So do your service at at most at you can. The Lord will automatically be satisfied, and He will automatically satisfied indirectly. So, and that is the message. Thank you so much.
Jai. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else would like to say something or ask something? Okay, thank you all again. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा
Vanchakalpataruvashta
सिन्धुभ्येव
kripa
च पतितानां
sindhuvaivacha
पावनेभ्यो
patitanam
वैष्णवेभ्यो
pavanebhyo
नमो नमः
namo namo
अनन्तकोटि वैष्णववृन्द की जय
Vrindavan
हिज ग्रेस
Madhurya
वृंदावन मधुर
Vrindavan
जगत
Madhurya
की
Das
जय
I
शिला
Srila
प्रभुपाद
Prabhupada
की
ki
जय
jai.
गौर
Gaur
प्रेमानंदे
Premanande
हरि
Hari
हरि
Hari
बोल
Bol.
all
All
glories
glories
to
to the
assembled
assembled
devotees Hare Krishna
devotees.